Dear Dad, some of this letter is spontaneous and some of it is stuff I've already written to you. Bet you can guess, sort of, which is which. How's it going? Any big plans? You and Rhonda going to take any trips? How are the grandkids? Reagan is going to be a teenager soon. Ah, the first 2 decades of the 21st century. We are adapting to more consumer stuff in our lives, more, at least potential debt, more automation of services, more perceived lack of community, perhaps. I don't have a handle on it, though as you may know I want to. It has most to do with how we as individuals experience time and how we view ourselves, or at least others, as agents of history. When I say agent, I mean one who can cause effects. Not every person does such, and obviously there is more to a person than his or her agency. So that's why I use the word agent and agency. There should be nothing esoteric about it. Anyway, as I was alluding, the perception of time is important to me. Even as I freely admit I don't really know fully how to talk about it, make sense of it. But always the subject is about human consciousness, and consciousness is always consciousness of something, right? So we fix our attention to something more concrete, like grandkids, bills, duties at work, the physical spaces that the notion of community evokes in our minds. Anyways, yes, the perceived community as well, as the lack of community. That is a topic I like to think about, and something I think you're fit to chime in on. I say this because I perceive you as having a very strong sense of it. You must, because how else have you managed to stay sane all these years amid all the drudgery, pain, and unreliability of others? I know we could fill a whole book about that. Amy and I have often talked angrily about people taking advantage of you. I won't mention names, but that you don't make it a big deal, that you just let those debts of others go, speaks to something larger than your own personal gain or loss. You know this. One of the most influential books in my life is Nietzsche's The Genealogy of Morals. There's a quote that you reminded me of. In part 2, he traces the origins of human feelings of guilt and resentment, to the age-old existence of creditor and debtor relationships that go on in communities. In section 10 of part 2, he states, "The creditor always becomes more humane to the extent that he has grown richer. Finally, how much injury he can endure without suffering from it becomes the actual measure of his wealth. It is not unthinkable that a society might attain such a consciousness of power that it could allow itself the noblest luxury possible to it, letting those who harm it go unpunished. What are my parasites to me, it may say. May they live and prosper. I am strong enough for that." That's you. Still, there's a sense of justice in us all that wants to bear witness to the seemingly worthless piece of shits who take without ever giving, who have no sense of the kind of well-being and power that can come from contributing to others. We want to call them out on their shit, but then there is an assurance that so many of them are already punished by their own guilty reflection. They bring it to themselves. This is another reason to be against the death penalty, but I digress. Likely the wealthy who become wealthy by being parasites do not feel that guilt. What all of that has to do with perceptions of time is simply that time is simply that. Time runs its course, and if a human being is forgetful enough, he or she may never be able to have that aforementioned strength that you have. On the other hand, isn't it forgetfulness of some debts owed to one that allows such, for lack of a better word, mercy? But community, that is the word. That is what I find to be the common denominator of us all. What we should consciously strive for a variety of reasons. I'm stopping now the preachiness and give you a rundown of what's up with me and my search for an ascertainment of community. Number 1, what's with all the letter writing and mail art? Well, it has to do with my awareness that I won't have the goddamn time to write or finish the damn good stories, novels, and other prose works I have the potential to do. I'm in most ways a late bloomer, and so I'm on this race with myself as a writer. If I fail to complete the 2 or 3 great novels I know I have in me, then my letters will bear out much of what is lost or deferred. Also, I think what I'm doing is unique and potentially marketable. I believe it's possible to have a market for people who want the handmade, the tangible verbosity that the form can give. I'm not an ideal Luddite. That is, it's not that I hate technology. I make use of online social media every day. But my letters and mail art may appeal to those who don't, old and young. The epistolary art is the main project under a larger enterprise I'm trying to create. Enduring Puberty Press. Jamie, say it. What is it?
Enduring Puberty Press.
What is it? Louder!
EPP.
EPP. Which is also trying to fulfill a promise that many of us naively believed the internet held. The demolishing of celebrity culture, the do-it-yourself media's conquering of the mainstream media, the shattering of the hegemony the large corporations have over our lives, the empowerment of individuals and neglected communities to tell their own stories and enable connections across geographical borders, ethnicities, race, and social class. To be sure, the internet has helped bring about some of those positive things, but celebrity culture is bigger than ever now. Corporate media, which propagates the status quo of conspicuous consumption, meaningless gossip, doing nothing about our decaying ecosystems or wealth inequality, etc., still thrives. So it is in that spirit that EPP seeks to undertake, in its own modest way, a campaign of homemade art and literature and journalism as a witness to beautiful things and a self-conscious seeker of community. As more time passes, I will get more urgent in the expression of these themes, so aware of how little time I have on earth, and of course in saying what I want to say to those I love. Number 2, baseball's unlikely handy heroes trading cards. WTF. I'm still drawing every weekend while listening to old ball games. By this time next year, the first edition of the trading cards will be out for sale. Number 3, hating my job, trying to get multiple temporary jobs, landscaping, farming, ditch digging, office work, so I can return to the think tank I volunteered for so many years. This time as a 10-hour work week employee, and earn another supplemental income as a street musician. Number 4, my music. I've been too busy to stay well practiced, but I got a big repertoire of songs that I can play somewhat confidently. Once I can quit Jeet It, it's game on. Jamie and me are doing great. We are slacking a bit on the gardening, but are coming back with an expanded garden next year. We hope to make supplemental income or trade with what we produce. 6, Douglas County Coalition for Bernie Sanders. I have formed a reliable group of team leaders and have more or less placed myself in charge of much of what gets done. We will be meeting, greeting, making calls, knocking on doors, holding fundraisers and registration drives, all to bring Kansas delegates to the 2016 Democratic National Convention for Bernie. Are you aware that Bernie is ahead by large margins of the still presumed frontrunner in Iowa and New Hampshire? He can win this. Do you see why it's important that he be elected the nominee over the establishment Dem? Even for the national scene, the polling shows that he can beat any of those nutjob Republicans in the election. We just have to get organized, stay organized. Anyway, lots of changes are happening. Reflecting on my last letter to you, a part of me feels I should be more embarrassed how seemingly braggadocious it must have read, particularly the part about the baseball cards. But I stand by what I said, fully aware that I will most likely have a very small audience, but that's more than okay. But also the knowledge that I'm like a little kid sometimes, wanting to make you and Mom proud of me. When, for so many years, I didn't think I did. Weird. Anyway, I love you, and hope you enjoy the trading card prototypes. Baseballs, unlikely handy heroes, profiles in re-enabled excellence. Your son, Josh.